A little minor adjustment to make sure that's nice and tight. And what are you doing, dog? He just keeps scratching under my desk for his ball. This little guy is always getting up under my feet. Hey guys, this is Lisa here, and today we're going to work on this teardrop link shape bracelet. To get started, we're going to need about 9 to 12 pieces of 20 gauge wire cut at 7 centimeters each. It depends on how long you want your bracelet and how many pieces you're going to need. Next, we're going to need a piece of 18 gauge wire cut at 4.5 centimeters in length for the clasp. And we are going to need some chain nose pliers. We're also going to need some flathead pliers. We'll need a pair of flush cutters. We're also going to use this 6-step wire looping plier, which ranges between 2 and 9 millimeters in mandrels for this. We're going to need a chasing hammer for hardening our wire. We're going to use this bench block. We'll need a cut burr, which rounds over the wire in the end or smooths it out, or you can use a file or nail file, whatever you have to round that wire over in the ends. For a complete list of this materials list, check out my description below. So to get started, we're going to need this 20 gauge wire, and we're going to need these looping pliers, and this is the 4 millimeter barrel right here. And I'm going to take that wire and put it right in the middle there on the looping pliers, and then I'm going to push the two ends of the wire up around this 4 millimeter barrel, and I'm going to make my teardrop shape around that barrel. So as you can see, it's starting to form that little teardrop shape. There, we started that. So the next step is to take the two ends that crisscross each other and just make them face straight up. So I'm going to take my flathead pliers and grab up right about where those wires cross, and then straighten the wires up so that they can lie up next to each other and we can make that little teardrop shape. I'm just going to make a little adjustment here to get that to be more like the other side. And there you go, our first little teardrop shape. I'm going to show you one more time. I'm going to grab the 20 gauge wire and center it right behind that 4 millimeter barrel. And then I'm going to push the ends of my wire around that barrel until those two wires cross each other and overlap. And then pushing them together to make that little teardrop shape. And you want them to be, this little teardrop shape to be about the same size as the other one. And now grabbing my flathead pliers, I'm going to put those right in there, and that top of the flathead pliers is going to be right where those wires cross, and then make a little bend upward, just like that. And now we have the beginnings of our first two links. Now with the magic of video editing, I'm going to make all these into those little links. And there they are. And I'm going to show you how to do more than one at a time. I usually do 2 or 3 at a time. It makes it a whole lot faster. So here you could see I've grabbed 2 of those 20 gauge wires side by side, lined up. And again, we're just going to wrap it around the barrel just like we did with one single wire. And crisscross those over until you get the right size. and voila, we could do them 2 or 3 at a time. And there they are, all ready for the next step. So now we're going to grab the bench block, and I am going to hammer these little teardrop shapes. So I'm going to grab my chasing hammer, and we're just going to give these little guys a little tap, tap, tap. So each of these is going to get hammered on one side, flipped over, hammered on the other side, just to give them an even hammering. And there you can see it finished. Again, we're going to hammer this, and we're going to hammer it out away from the top of that teardrop, and we're just staying on the teardrop shape, not on the wires that are up laying side by side. So there you can see that's all nice and hammered out again. There you go. I'm going to show you one more time. We're going to grab the chasing hammer and hammer out away from the top of the teardrop shape, and then flip the piece over, and then hammer the other side, and there is the perfect little teardrop. Now, with the magic of video editing, there we have all of our pieces hammered out and ready for the next step. So now we're going to take my flat head pliers, and where I've made a little bend, I'm going to go ahead and straighten this back out. I want that wire to go cross back over the other side of the other wire. And then I'm going to take this wire and I'm going to bend it around the other wire. I'm going to go around one complete time and then back all the way to the back. So with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to tighten up that little loop around the neck of that wire, which will become the little loop that I can attach this link to the next link. So there you can see I've tightened that little loop up, nice and tight and snug. And I'm going to press those wraps together, make sure everything is nice and neat and tidy. And then I'm going to fix that little bend in that wire here in a second. There we go. And now with my flush cutters, I'm going to cut the tail of this wire off. So here you can see I'm going to cut that wire right behind the back of this piece, right on the back of the wire that's going straight up. And I left just a little bit of a tail there, as you can see. And so now I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and I'm going to press that wire down to this wire that is going straight up. So you can see that's pressed down there. And I want to cut off a little bit more of that wire. I only want it to come halfway across the wire that's coming up out of my piece. So as you could see right there, that wire is just about halfway across the back of that piece altogether. So now we're going to make our loop. So I'm going to take this wire that's sticking up and I'm going to push it forward just slightly. Just like that. I'm going to grab my looping pliers and use the 2mm mandrel on the looping pliers. And I'm going to grab just above, leaving a little bit of space for a wrap to go around. And then I'm going to make a loop all the way around to the front. Just like that. And now I'm going to make the tail end of this wire go back around, and I'm going to use my flathead pliers to hold on to that loop so it makes it easier. And I'm going to press that wire toward the back of my teardrop link. Just like that. And then I'm going to press that up against it nice and tight. And then the goal is to get that little tail end of a wire to meet up with the other tail end of the wire that I've already pressed down against the back of there. So I'm going to cut that little tail end off as close as I can. And there you can see it's very close to the other one there. So now with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to press it down onto there and get those wires to meet right up against each other nice and snug. That's just going to keep everything nice and neat and tidy, and to have a nice little smooth surface that won't snag on things. So now we just need to straighten up anything at the top here to make sure it looks good. So I'm going to take my flathead pliers and just kind of straighten up the little bail end of this teardrop. And there you can see we've completed our first little link. So now our next one's going to be slightly different than the first one. So we're going to grab this and we're going to straighten out that wire again, just like we did before. And we're going to bend that wire back around the other wire again. I'm going to go up around a full time and then back around to the back again. Again, using the chain nose pliers to snug that wire up around that wire, the other wire. Get it as tight as possible. And then getting everything to look neat and tidy. Pushing those wraps up close. And then with the flush cutters, we're going to cut a little tiny tail at the end. And with the chain nose pliers, we are going to snug that wire up against the other wire. Just like that. Again, I'm going to trim off any excess. And there you can see, we're right halfway across there. Now, again, like we did before, we're bending that wire slightly forward. And then grabbing that 2 millimeter looping plier end. We're going to bring our wire over the top to make our loop. But this time, we're not going to close our loop off right away. So we're going to bring that loop end over and then remove our looping pliers. And now we're going to add our other link to this link. So we need to start off so that that link is actually backward. So this is the back of the link. And we're going to thread it onto this loop and see how that will flip right back over to the right direction. And now we're going to close that loop off. So here I'm grabbing that wire and I'm twisting it around to the back. And I'm getting it all nice and tight up in there. Again, grabbing my flush cutters to snip off that little end. And there you can see, there's the end of that first wire. And I'm going to snip this wire so that they'll meet up perfectly. And here I'm going to just press that wire right up against the first wire. And there you go. They're now attached. And now we get to keep continuing to do that with the rest of our teardrop shapes over there. So now with the magic of video editing, we're going to finish all these others. And here is my finished chain. Isn't that gorgeous? So now I'm going to show you how to make a clasp to put this thing together. So here's a 4.5 centimeter wire. It's an 18 gauge wire. And I'm going to use my 2 millimeter looping pliers. And I'm going to put that wire so that it just comes flush to these two barrels. And then push this wire all the way around till it meets the tail of that wire. So there you can see it meets all the way back up. Now we're going to use our 6 millimeter bail or loop up here, and I'm going to bend that wire around there, and I'm also going to make sure the tail or the looped end of this wire is pushed up against this barrel, and then push the other end up against as well until it crosses over into a figure 8 form here. And then we're going to pull it off of our pliers, and there you can see that figure 8 shape. Now with my flush cutters, I'm going to cut the tail end of this off right where it crosses over itself there. So now you can see that figure 8. And with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to take the end of this wire and make a little bend outward. Like that. And now I'm going to make a little minor adjustment to make sure that's nice and tight. And what are you doing, dog? He just keeps scratching under my desk for his ball. This little guy is always getting up under my feet. Alright, back to work. So now we're going to get the chasing hammer and hammer this clasp out to give it the hardness that it needs so that it will not come apart easily. So here you can see it's a little separated there. I'm going to adjust that to pull that back in by putting it back on the pliers and pulling it together. And here you can see it's pulled back together. So now with my cut burr, I'm going to round off the end of this wire. So as you can see, I just give it a few little twists and turns, and that generally gets that burr off the end of that wire. But you can also do this with the file and just kind of file off those little burrs or those rough edges on the ends so that it doesn't catch on everything. So there's the finished clasp. Now with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to open this loop by giving it a twist. You never want to pull it out away from the piece. That will misshape your little loop. So there, we're ready to add this on. So we're going to add it through that last loop of the teardrop. And now we're going to close that loop up the same way we opened it, twisting it back. And there you can see it's all closed up. And there we have a finished teardrop link bracelet. I like to loop the clasp right through that last teardrop shape, but if you'd rather make a little loop to put on the end, you can do that, or use a jump ring. That's completely up to you. I just like the seamless look without the jump ring being there. And there you can see how it just seamlessly pulls it together. This is such a cute little dainty bracelet. It's a simple design. I hope you guys really liked this video. Let me know in the comments below what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. I'd sure love to hear your feedback and your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe so that you will see more like this. And I look forward to seeing y'all next Thursday.